History is written by the victors, but some victories are so vast, so total, they are whispered in hushed, fearful tones for centuries. This is the story of a man who never lost a battle, a general who conquered more territory than any other in history, yet remains a shadow in the annals of time. This is the story of Subutai the Unstoppable. Our story begins not in a palace, but in the unforgiving wilderness of Siberia, in the biting cold, in the deep snows of the taiga. A young boy from the Uryan-Kai tribe, a people of the forest, learned his first lessons. He wasn't studying texts or maps. He was studying wolves. He watched their pack dynamics, their relentless pursuit, their cunning and patience. He learned how they used the terrain, how they surrounded their prey, how they attacked from unexpected angles. This was not a game, it was survival. And in the heart of this young boy, the seeds of a terrifying military genius were sown. He was born a commoner, the son of a blacksmith, destined for a simple life. But fate and a young warlord named Temujin had other plans. When he pledged his loyalty to the man who would become Genghis Khan, Subutai was not a prince or a nobleman. He was just a skilled and loyal warrior. But the Khan saw something more. He saw a mind that moved like the wolves of the taiga. Alongside Jeeb, Jelm, and Kublai, Subutai became one of the Khan's famed 4 dogs of war. They were not just soldiers. They were instruments of the Khan's will, extensions of his ambition. Standing in the cold mist of the steppe, they were the architects of a new kind of warfare. A storm gathering on the horizon, ready to reshape the world. Their strategy was forged in the fire of countless campaigns. It was a doctrine of speed, surprise, and psychological terror. On flickering candlelight, hunched over rough leather maps, they planned campaigns that spanned continents. Their armies moved faster than rumors could travel. They perfected the feigned retreat, luring arrogant enemies into perfectly laid traps. They built a sophisticated intelligence network, a web of spies and scouts that stretched from the shores of the Pacific to the forests of Europe. Before the first arrow was loosed, Subutai knew his enemy's strengths, their weaknesses, their fears. He knew the terrain, the river crossings, the political rivalries he could exploit. The battle was often won before it even began. Perhaps no campaign better showcases this terrifying efficiency than the Great Raid of 1221. After the conquest of the Khwarezmian Empire, Subutai and Jeeb were given a simple order: scout the lands to the west. What followed was one of the greatest feats of cavalry in military history. With 20,000 horsemen, they embarked on a 3-year, 5,000-mile journey. They rode through Persia into the Caucasus Mountains. In the dead of winter, they crossed the frozen peaks in utter silence, falling upon the kingdom of Georgia with the fury of a blizzard. The Georgian knights, famed for their heavy armor and chivalry, were annihilated. From the Caucasus, they swept into the lands of the Rus. The scattered, feuding princes of Kiev and Galicia united, confident in their superior numbers. At the Kalka River, they faced the Mongols. Subutai used his classic tactic. Small Mongol force engaged the Rus, then broke and fled. For a week, the overconfident princes gave chase, their heavy infantry falling far behind their cavalry, their formations stretching thin. They believed they were chasing a defeated rabble. They were wrong. They were being led into a trap. Finally, Subutai sprung it. On the far side of the river, the main Mongol army, hidden until that moment, appeared as if from the earth itself. They were a phantom army, an inescapable net. The chase became a slaughter. The Rus were surrounded, exhausted, and completely disorganized. The horror on their faces, as they realized their fatal mistake, was the final victory. The so-called barbarians had just dismantled the combined might of the Rus principalities with chilling, methodical precision. The princes themselves were captured and, in a grim display of Mongol tradition, executed by being placed under a large wooden platform upon which Subutai and his commanders held a victory feast, a brutal end to a campaign built on sheer genius. The Mongol war machine then turned its sights to the ancient and powerful Jin dynasty of northern China. This was a different kind of war. It was not a war of open plains, but of massive, fortified cities. The Mongols were horsemen, not siege engineers, or so the Jin believed. But Subutai was a master of adaptation. He incorporated captured engineers and their knowledge into his army. The night air filled with the groaning of colossal siege engines, the thud of trebuchets hurling massive stones and incendiary bombs. One by one, the great cities fell. The Jin dynasty, which had stood for over a century, crumbled into dust. The conquest of China was not just a victory, it was an evolution. Subutai had proven he could conquer not just armies, but empires. Years later, the storm reached Europe. In 1241, Subutai, now an old man, orchestrated his final masterpiece, the invasion of Hungary. He divided his forces, sending a detachment into Poland to act as a diversion, while he led the main army toward the heart of the Hungarian kingdom. At the Battle of Mohi, on the banks of the Scorched River, he faced a massive European army led by King Bela IV. What followed was a masterclass in strategy. Under the cover of darkness, Subutai sent a force across the river to establish a bridgehead. The fighting was fierce, lit only by fire and the cold light of the moon. For hours, the Hungarians held the bridge, but it was all part of the plan. While the Hungarian knights were focused on the main bridge, Subutai had secretly constructed a temporary pontoon bridge further downstream. At dawn, a massive Mongol force appeared on the Hungarians' flank. Panic erupted. The European army, trapped between the river and two Mongol forces, began to collapse. Subutai, ever the psychologist, intentionally left a gap in his encirclement. It seemed like an escape route. It was a killing field. As the terrified soldiers fled through the gap, Mongol archers, waiting patiently, cut them down. The slaughter was immense. In a single battle, the army of Hungary ceased to exist. The road to Vienna lay open. Europe was at his mercy. Only the unexpected death of the great Khan Ogday and the subsequent recall of all Mongol princes to elect a successor saved the continent from total conquest. Subutai's mind saw the world as a giant game board. His maneuvers were like a grandmaster's moves in chess, each one setting up the next, thinking 10 steps ahead. He moved armies across continents with the same ease that a player moves a piece across a board. From the forests of Siberia to the plains of Hungary, he was always in control, always orchestrating, always winning. Imagine him in his final years, an old man sitting alone in a silent tent on the vast Mongolian steppe, the architect of the largest contiguous land empire in history. He had fought in 20 campaigns, won 65 pitched battles, and conquered 32 nations. His body was a map of his life, covered in the scars of 100 fights. He was the unbeaten general, the man who brought kings to their knees and raised empires to the ground. Yet, there was no boastfulness, only the quiet weight of a life spent in perpetual war. He was the shadow behind the throne, the wolf who never lost the hunt. His legacy is not one of shining cities or grand monuments. It is quieter, more profound. It is a lone Mongol standard, whipping in a winter storm, planted over a vast, empty graveyard of fallen empires. It is a testament to the chilling power of a single, brilliant mind. The world he helped create was forged in fire and blood, but it also connected East and West like never before. Subutai, the blacksmith's son, the shadow general, remains a quiet, formidable, and eternal figure in the grand, brutal tapestry of human history. Thank you for watching. If you found this journey into the mind of a master strategist compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more stories from the forgotten corners of history.